Admiral Sirit Vex watched the colony burn with the detachment of a man observing weather. The flames didn't reach space, of course, but the drifting clouds of vaporized structures painted long, shimmering ribbons across his flagship's observation glass. A technician murmured that resistance had been minimal, which was to say non-existent. Vex gave a small grunt, neither approval nor criticism, merely acknowledgement. Conquest had become ordinary, predictable, dull. His bridge crew, efficient and young, traded quiet remarks while logging the raid's success. They knew the script so well that half their tasks were muscle memory. Another primitive colony. Another harvest of metals. Another reminder that the Varkal Dominion owned every corridor worth owning in this edge of the galaxy. Vex had led fleets through rebellions, border skirmishes, and ideological purges, yet nothing felt as stagnant as these raids. Power, once achieved, was strangely tedious. Human designation, said his second officer Koresh, sending the data to his console. The hologram displayed a pale world with a ring of mining apparatus. Operated by Terrans. Resources minimal. Defenses laughable. There was a faint, shared chuckle among the officers. Vex allowed the corner of his mouth to tick upward. Humans had a reputation for being accommodating, almost eager to negotiate their way out of trouble. Polite, soft-spoken, industrious. No threat. Not like the Zirithi swarms or the Aquilon enclaves who bit back like cornered animals. Humans, by comparison, folded. Is it worth the trouble? Koresh asked. Their council files complaints endlessly. Let them, Vex replied. No empire expands by asking permission. He dismissed the hologram and rose, stretching stiff limbs. Age had carved into him a cynicism that younger officers mistook for serenity. He didn't bother correcting them. Let them think him calm. Fearless. Boredom, not bravery, kept him composed. The fleet repositioned effortlessly, engines humming as they prepared to strike a human scientific outpost orbiting Titan. It was a minor target, too minor, Vex thought, but command enjoyed consistency. And consistency required reminders of dominance. As they approached the Saturnian moon, the human outpost came into view, a spindly lattice of metal arms and communication dishes. No escort ships. No automated defense grid active. Lights glimmered faintly along its surface like nervous heartbeat flickers. Too quiet, but quiet was common with humans. Commence jamming, Vex ordered, settling back into his command chair. Signals collapsed instantly. The outpost dimmed. A transmission flickered but died before forming a sentence. Dominion Marines boarded with clinical efficiency, securing the facility in minutes. Reports filtered in. Scientists evacuated. Some equipment left behind, nothing of note. It's almost disappointing, Koresh said. We barely broke a sweat. Vex's fingers drummed on the armrest. Their behavior is predictable. Safety first, confrontation never. A junior officer cleared her throat. Admiral, a distress beacon activated during the breach. Then it stopped abruptly. Human incompetence, Koresh muttered. But Vex felt a small, sour knot form in his gut. Not fear, instinct, the same instinct that had guided him through battles others hadn't survived. Something about the beacon's brief burst felt intentional, a flare lit not to ask for help, but to mark a moment. He shook off the thought. Humans weren't bold enough for traps. The fleet withdrew into the darkness beyond Titan's orbit. Saturn's rings glittered beneath them, a pale halo of ice and stone. The raid had taken 24 minutes, longer than usual only because Marines took time cataloging the outpost's abandoned files. Vex was about to dismiss the bridge when a soft, almost imperceptible pulse rippled across their sensors. A blip. A shadow. Something immense, yet nearly invisible, passed along the edge of detection before disappearing entirely. What was that? Koresh asked, brows knitting. Sensor ghost, an engineer replied. Interference from the rings, maybe. Vex stared at the display, gaze narrowing. The silhouette, whatever it was, did not match any known ship signature. For a moment he wondered if humans possessed technology more advanced than they admitted. Then he dismissed the idea as absurd. Humans had barely cracked efficient warp. Still, he ordered adjustments to the sensor calibration. Koresh gave him a questioning look. You're jumpy tonight, the officer said lightly. Experience, not nerves, Vex replied. Even predators must stay alert. He left the bridge, boots echoing along the corridor. But the sensor ghost followed him like a whisper he couldn't quite ignore. Hours later, reports from the fleet's exploratory division began trickling in. 3 abandoned human colonies had recently been surveyed. Empty, clean, vacated with alarming precision. Human footprints, human tools, no signs of struggle. One officer joked that the humans ran at the mere rumor of Dominion arrival. Vex reviewed the hollowed-out settlements again and again, studying the strange patterns equipment had been left in, too organized to be accidental. Like someone had arranged objects to be seen from orbit. Like messages. He wasn't sure what they said. On the far side of the fleet's range, another sensor reading glitched. This time, the anomaly lingered for half a second, just long enough to sketch a faint outline of something enormous drifting silently behind them. Vex stared at the slow pulse on the display. It faded. Gone. Perhaps, he murmured to himself, the humans have finally grown a spine. But that didn't feel right. This wasn't defiance. It wasn't confrontation. It felt like observation, as though humanity had been watching them for longer than the Dominion realized. He returned to his quarters, uneasy for the first time in years. Sleep evaded him. The taste of that sensor ghost lingered on his thoughts, metallic and cold. Humanity had always been cooperative, predictable, manageable. So why did it suddenly feel like they were waiting for something? And why, when he closed his eyes, did he feel that the shadow trailing his fleet wasn't a warning, but a promise? He didn't know, but soon he would. Admiral Sirit Vex rarely allowed tension to show, but as the Dominion High Council replayed the Titan raid for the 4th time, he kept his hands clasped tightly behind his back. The holographic feed floated in the dim chamber, the human outpost surrendering without resistance, the Marines crossing empty corridors, the sudden flick of the distress beacon, the abrupt silence. The counselors argued in layered tones, dismissive, irritated, vaguely amused. None of them saw what Vex saw. They saw weakness. He saw intention. The humans fled, Counselor Dareth proclaimed with a lazy wave. Is there nature? Nature changes, Vex replied evenly. Sometimes faster than we assume. Dareth scoffed. You speak as though they matter. They didn't, Vex admitted. Now I'm not so certain. His words drew a flicker of interest from few members, but most ignored him. The Dominion had grown too comfortable, too certain of its supremacy. They viewed humanity as they viewed dust, everywhere, harmless, easy to brush aside. A young intelligence officer entered, eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and confusion. She handed a data slate to the council moderator. Recovered from the Titan outpost, she said. Arranged on the lab floor. It appears to be a pattern. The moderator displayed the image. Equipment pieces, tools, datapads, metal scraps had been laid out in deliberate, geometric alignment. When rendered into 3 dimensions, the shape became clear. A circle with an empty center. A target without the strike. An eye without a pupil. We believe, the intelligence officer continued, this was meant to be viewed from orbit. Dareth laughed outright. Art. Humans are fond of symbols. It means nothing. Vex stared at it longer. The empty center bothered him. A watchful shape. A void where something should be. Or something that was watching back. Another report arrived, this time from the Dominion destroyer Vorith. Its captain appeared as a shaky hologram, an unusual breach in discipline. We encountered an unidentified Terran vessel, he said. Class unknown. Stealth capabilities far beyond anything we've seen. The council chamber quieted. What was its configuration? Vex asked. We never got a clear visual, the captain replied. It stayed just outside our sensor range. No weapons fire. No communications. It simply followed. You're telling us humans tailed a Dominion warship? Dareth said. Impossible. The captain swallowed. We are still analyzing the damage. Damage, the moderator repeated sharply. It didn't fire. No, the captain said. But our engines shut down. Our life support rebooted. Our internal systems were examined. The chamber thickened with silence. Vex felt a strange cold spread across his spine. Examination implied analysis. Study. A predator might strike out of necessity or instinct. A scientist watched before acting. Humans were both. When the hologram dissipated, Vex spoke with a tone that left no room for mockery. This is no longer simple defiance. Humans are observing us, testing our response patterns. They want us to escalate. Counselor Dareth rolled his eyes. You give them too much credit. And you give them too little, Vex replied. We raided their outpost. They did not retaliate. They did not complain. They did not warn. They simply marked us. Marked, someone echoed. Vex nodded. They want us to think they are vulnerable. They want us overconfident. The council dismissed him shortly after, but the seeds of unease had taken root, somewhere. Small but present. Back aboard his flagship, Vex stood alone in the dark, reviewing sensor logs. The faint ghost that had appeared near Titan re-emerged in the latest data, still too blurry to classify, but growing more defined with each encounter. Its mass was colossal, far exceeding known human construction capacities. The signature pulsed with intermittent distortions, almost as though it were phasing in and out of existence. His officers kept offering explanations, glitches, cosmic dust, gravitational shear, but none satisfied him. A glitch did not mask its shape this consistently. Dust did not track a military fleet, and nothing natural moved with such calculated distance. The ghost wanted to be seen. Vex replayed it again and again, amplifying the outline with each pass. The more he examined it, the more he felt as though he were staring at a creature that had been circling in the dark, waiting for the right moment to step into the light. Koresh approached quietly. "Admiral, you seem troubled." "I am," Vex admitted. "Humans do not show their teeth unless they intend to bite." Koresh frowned. "We have crushed worlds stronger than them." "Yes," Vex said softly, "but not worlds that hide their strength." His second opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, following Vex's gaze to the hologram. The silhouette flickered, a massive hull, angles shifting like liquid. "That is no human ship," Koresh whispered. "It is," Vex said. "Or it will be." A transmission alert flashed at that moment, startling the bridge crew. It was a human signal, clear, unencrypted, impossibly calm. To the vessels of the Varkal Dominion, the message said, "Your violation of Terran sovereign space has been recorded. Further incursions will not be tolerated." Koresh barked a laugh. "They threaten us." But Vex wasn't laughing. The message was coldly polite, almost clinical. There was no demand for reparation, no plea for mercy, only an announcement, delivered with the stillness of someone fully confident in their position. "Trace the signal," Vex ordered. They did. The source was 20 million kilometers away, behind them. But when the fleet turned, nothing was there. No ship, no beacon, only empty space. Vex exhaled a long breath. The humans had spoken selectively, precisely, and then vanished. He felt the weight of the moment settle across his shoulders like a mantle he didn't ask for. "They're not warning us," Vex murmured. "They're preparing us." "For what?" Koresh asked. Vex didn't answer because the truth, sharp and unwelcome, was taking shape in his mind. The humans were not reacting to aggression, they were executing a strategy. A long one, older than this incident. Older, perhaps, than their partnership with peaceful neighbors. He had the chilling sense that humanity had been waiting for the Dominion to cross a line. And the Dominion had done so with a casual raid, thinking itself untouchable. The final signal of the night arrived from deep space sensors, a faint, unmistakable outline of the same massive shadow, this time closer and holding still. Watching, Vex leaned forward, unable to look away. It was no longer hiding. Whatever the humans had built, whatever they had become, it was awake now. And it was coming. The Dominion High Council chamber vibrated with restrained fury the moment Admiral Vex stepped inside. The air itself felt thinner, crowded by too many egos in too little space. Holographic displays flickered with images of disabled destroyers, corrupted navigation logs, and the faint outline of that enormous shadow that now haunted every ship's report. The counselors argued loudly, overlapping one another, each attempting to dominate the narrative before the truth could become undeniable. "They're testing our borders because we've allowed them to," Counselor Dara thundered, pounding his fist into the projection table hard enough to distort the light. "One decisive strike will bring the humans to heel. They need to remember their station." "You assume they ever forgot it," Vex replied, stepping forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone carried the gravity of experience, the kind that silenced even those who loathed listening to him. "The humans' restraint is intentional. They're waiting for us to escalate so they can justify whatever they're planning." A low murmur rippled across the room. Some counselors shifted uncomfortably, others scoffed. "Admiral," said Counselor Miar, folding her hands with icy patience, "you are attributing strategic brilliance to a species that considered asteroid mining an achievement only a century ago." Vex studied her for a long moment. "Underestimating them is how this began." He projected the sensor data, the ghost silhouette of the unknown human vessel expanding across the chamber. The size alone drew gasps, massive, elegant in its severity, a shape that seemed to distort the space around it. "This is a distortion artifact," Dareth insisted weakly. Vex shook his head. "It has observed us from system to system. It follows at precise intervals. Its trajectory adapts to our course corrections. It is not a glitch, not debris, and certainly not passive." "What is it then?" Mihar asked. Vex hesitated before answering. He knew how it would sound. A dreadnought. One we were never meant to detect until it wanted us to. The silence that followed was brittle. Koresh had once told him that silence was the final weapon in politics, the moment when truth crashed into pride. He could almost hear the impact echoing behind the counselor's eyes. Eventually, one counselor whispered, "If humanity built such a vessel in secret, for what purpose?" Vex gave the only answer that fit. "Defense." Dareth scoffed. "Defense? That ship could dismantle our fleets." "Yes," Vex said. "And yet it hasn't, even when it had opportunity." That truth unsettled the room more than any threat of violence. Mercy implied control. Patience implied confidence. Humanity was behaving as though it understood the Dominion better than the Dominion understood itself. "You are all missing the point," Vex continued. "Humans have prepared for a war they never started. We don't know what else they have hidden. And every move we make pushes them closer to revealing it." Mihar frowned. "So you recommend retreat?" "I recommend caution," Vex said. "Observe. Communicate. Do not invade." The council erupted again, but Vex could see it now, the split forming. Some leaders were shaken, ready to reconsider their posture. Others doubled down, clinging to pride like armor. "We will not be cowed by shadows," Dareth spat. "We mobilize the armada. Full offensive toward Sol." Vex felt a jolt of cold fury. "If you do this, you will provoke a response we are not prepared to survive." "Is not your decision," Dareth snapped. The council voted. Vex watched the results illuminate before him, an overwhelming majority in favor of the invasion. A death sentence disguised as a show of strength. When the chamber emptied, Vex lingered, staring at the slowly fading hologram of the human vessel. It pulsed once more before dissolving into darkness, like a single heartbeat echoing across the void. He wondered if humans were watching the council meeting in real time. The thought no longer felt paranoid. Back aboard his flagship, the preparations for the invasion were already underway. Thousands of Dominion ships surged toward the outskirts of Sol like a metal tide rolling into battle. Engines roared, cannons charged, confidence radiated from every hull. Yet beneath the bravado, tension gnawed at the fleet. Koresh approached Vex quietly. "Admiral, do you believe we can win?" Vex didn't answer immediately. He studied the starfield ahead, the faint shimmer of Sol's distant light piercing the dark like a warning beacon. "I believe we have no idea what the humans have prepared. That makes this battle unnecessary." Koresh exhaled shakily. "If we push the council harder." "They don't listen to warnings," Vex said. "Only consequences." The fleet crossed into the outer regions of human space. No response. No ships. No defenses. Just vast, silent emptiness. It felt wrong, too calm, too open, as though humanity had deliberately cleared the board for what came next. "It feels abandoned," Koresh murmured. "It isn't," Vex replied. "They're waiting." Moments later, the stars rippled. At first it resembled a gravitational anomaly, a harmless distortion. But the ripple grew, expanded, unfolded into a blooming pattern of dark light, wormholes opening with unnatural precision. Human vessels poured through, not in chaotic waves but in perfect formation. Autonomous drones swept forward in synchronized arcs, moving like a single organism. The Dominion fleet scrambled, shouting over one another, demanding formation changes. Vex issued orders calmly, though he felt dread twisting beneath his ribs. A transmission cut across every Dominion channel. A human voice, unmoved, clinical, almost bored, spoke with absolute certainty. "Terran Defense Initiative, Phase 7 commencing. Disable only." And then the forward ships died. Not exploded, died. Systems shut down mid-flight. Engines stalled. Weapons powered off without firing a shot. Dominion warships fell dark like candles snuffed by a cold wind. Human drones sliced through the fleet, severing power lines, severing propulsion, severing hope. Cyber warfare cascaded across Dominion hulls, rewriting code faster than officers could shout countermeasures. Koresh stared in horror. "They're not even destroying us." "No," Vex said softly. "They don't need to." As his own ship's displays flickered, Vex felt the familiar pulse, a presence drawing close. The massive silhouette appeared before them, no longer hiding, no longer cloaked. Its hull absorbed starlight, a void molded into shape. Larger than anything the Dominion had ever conceived. The human dreadnought stopped directly in front of Vex's flagship. One beam of soft blue light swept across their hull, analyzing, not threatening. Studying him. Recognizing him. A final transmission arrived, this one directed solely to Vex. "Admiral Sirat Vex," the voice said. "We need to talk." The dreadnought held position, patient, immovable, blocking their path not with force, but with certainty. And Vex understood, in a way that hollowed him. This was no victory for the Dominion, nor even a defeat. This was humanity choosing to reveal the smallest fraction of what they had become. The battle was over. The real negotiations had just begun. Below is Section 4, written to deliver a tight, escalating narrative, deepen character complexity, sharpen the central conflict, and end with a thrilling, climactic beat that propels the story forward. The storm arrived without warning, sweeping across the valley like a living creature determined to swallow the expedition whole. Elena braced herself against the wind as she sprinted across the fractured stone terrace toward the ancient doorway Omar had found minutes earlier. The sky cracked open with a roar, illuminating the ruins in a pale, violent flash. For a breath, she saw the entire site, the toppled columns, the dark slab etched with glyphs, the shimmering distortion over the courtyard, as though the world itself had peeled back its veil to reveal something unbearable. Omar was already kneeling by the entrance, his fingers trembling as he traced the symbols carved into the arch. "These markings, they weren't here yesterday," he shouted over the wind. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with awe, as though he had finally stumbled upon a truth he had chased for years. "Nothing in this place stays the same for long," Elena replied, dropping beside him. Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the first flicker of panic. She had always prided herself on staying grounded, but the ruins had begun shifting in ways she could no longer rationalize. That made her uneasy. She preferred problems she could solve, not mysteries that rearranged themselves each time she blinked. Behind them, Marcus called out, struggling to drag their equipment crates across the trembling ground. "Whatever you two are doing, decide fast. The storm's pulling the energy fields apart. We don't have much time." Elena glanced back at him, seeing the fear in his eyes, fear he tried to mask behind his usual stubborn determination. Marcus had always been the anchor among them, the one who acted as a quiet reminder that not every solution came from deciphering lost languages or unraveling metaphysical anomalies. But even he had begun questioning their purpose here, and she couldn't blame him. Nothing they had encountered since stepping into the valley felt entirely real, as if the world around them were a reflection cast by something watching from the other side. She turned to Omar, who was now leaning toward the doorway, his breath warm against the stone, as he murmured faint translations. "This isn't just a threshold," he whispered, voice tight. "It's a seal." "A seal for what?" Elena asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into the satchel at his side and pulled out the obsidian shard they had discovered in the inner chamber the day before. The shard pulsed faintly, responding to the glyphs with a soft hum that vibrated through her bones. The sound was too deliberate, too alive. "Elena," Omar said slowly, as if each word were being dragged out of him. "This shard wasn't meant to be found. It was meant to stay inside. It completes the sequence." The ruins shuddered beneath them, and a crack tore through the terrace, stone grinding like teeth. Marcus dropped the crate and lunged toward them. "Move, both of you." But Omar didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the shard, transfixed with a certainty that frightened her more than the storm raging around them. Elena grabbed his arm, tried to pull him back, but he resisted. "Omar, listen to me." "I have been searching for this my entire life," he said, voice breaking with a mixture of conviction and sorrow. "I can't step back now. Omar, the valley is collapsing." "It's not collapsing," he said, looking up at her with an expression she had never seen before. "It's opening." The storm intensified. The distortion hovering above the courtyard cracked like glass, sending ripples through the air that bent the light and twisted the shadows. Marcus reached them, grabbing Elena's shoulder. "We need to leave. Now." But as they turned to retreat, the doorway ignited with a searing white light. The glyphs flared, the stone trembled, and the shard in Omar's hand released a resonant pulse that threw them all backward. Elena hit the ground hard, her vision blurring as the wind howled around her. Through the days, she saw Omar slowly rise to his feet, illuminated by the doorway's glow. His expression had changed, no longer driven by fear or wonder. It was something deeper, something ancient, as though a memory not his own had settled behind his eyes. "Omar," she whispered. He turned toward her, sorrow flickering across his face. "I can feel them," he said softly. "The ones who built this place. The ones who tried to keep it buried." Marcus staggered upright. Omar dropped the shard. But Omar only tightened his grip. The light intensified, wrapping around him in spiraling threads that lifted the dust and debris into the air. The ruins responded as if awakening from centuries of slumber, stone grinding and shifting as a low hum resonated through the ground. "Elena," Omar said, his voice trembling, "if this opens fully, something will come through. We can't let that happen." "Then step away from it," she pleaded. "I can't." His voice cracked. "I'm the one holding it closed." The wind screamed, the distortion overhead shattered with a deafening crack, and the valley erupted in blinding light. Elena instinctively shielded her eyes, but she couldn't stop watching Omar, whose silhouette stood at the center of the storm like a lone figure caught between worlds. "Go," he shouted, forcing the words past the roaring energy. "Both of you." Marcus grabbed Elena's arm again, but she pulled free, taking one desperate step toward Omar, only to be thrown back by an invisible force that tore the breath from her lungs. Omar met her gaze one last time, a silent apology shining in his eyes. The doorway surged. The light collapsed inward, and Omar vanished. The storm stopped instantly, leaving a crushing silence that felt heavier than the thunder ever had. Elena lay on the cold stone, unable to move, unable to breathe. Marcus knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he whispered her name, but all she could hear was the echo of Omar's final words, still vibrating through the ruins. Something had awakened, and it had taken him. She rose slowly, staring at the empty doorway where he had stood. The glyphs had gone dark again, but she felt the faint thrum under her fingertips, like a heartbeat. He was gone, but whatever he had kept sealed was no longer fully contained. The valley exhaled a low, distant rumble. Elena steeled herself. They weren't done here. Not even close.